I'll give you two examples. So my wife is from Germany. She's a ballet dancer, and she has a couple that is her dance partner for dancing is a gay guy, and he's married. And we know the two of them for years. They're just as deeply in love as my wife and I are, and they're good people. And they own a home together. They love each other. They travel. Just like any couple. Why would I want to judge them or even in any way think that's not normal? I mean, that's just so crazy.
That's
just
amazing.
That's so unchristian like. What would Jesus do? Jesus would accept these people. And by the way, I should point out too, since you're Republican, I should point out,
why
Jesus.
Do you believe that Jesus would accept these people as they are when you don't believe there is?
That's part of his philosophy. The pioneering. I can't believe I'm defending Jesus on a radio show as an atheist.
Yes, guys, welcome to another very interesting installment of Culture War. Here, Jesse is going to be taking on an atheist. Jesse really exposed and destroyed these atheists to the extent that he got confused and started to defend Jesus. Guys, you gotta enjoy this one. If you're not subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. So, without further ado, let's dive in.
I have with me an interesting guest. I was preparing for this show last night, looking at some of the videos. I'm like, wow, this is very interesting. I have with me Dr. Micah Shermer, Presidential Fellow at Chapman University and the publisher of Skeptic Magazine. He has a brand new book called Giving the Devil His Due.
There it is.
There it is.
There you go.
I can't wait to find out more about this book. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome, and thanks for having me. I appreciate that. I'll ask you something, Jesse. I don't know. I didn't know about your show, but so you're talking about the Great White Hope, but you're a black guy.
As black as the ace of space.
So square that circle. How do you?
I grew up on a plantation down in Alabama, right outside of Montgomery, Alabama. I grew up under the Jim Crow laws, and during that time, black Americans didn't hate. They didn't hate the white people. They were not blaming white folks. You had black families together, both parents together, grandparents, and they taught you to work. And even though we were working on a plantation, we were taught to work and respect one another, treat people the way we would like to be treated. And that during that Jim Crow law thing, it was from the Democratic Party, established by the Democrat, and all white people were not in favor of the Jim Crow law. And so all white people were not evil, and that was good or bad at all race. So I didn't grow up hating anyone. I grew up seeing people as they are. But when the Civil Rights Movement started, which should have never happened, they turned blacks away from God, away from family, away from the country, and they started using black people for their own personal gain. And it's just been downhill for black people. So I'm about the person, not the color.
Oh, me too. Absolutely. Dr. King's dream of judging people by the content or the character, not the color of their skin.
Well,
but
they took his dream and turned it into a nightmare.
I would point out Dr. King was a Christian.
Yeah, he was a real one.
Baptist minister, yeah. And Malcolm X was, the Nation of Islam until the end. So it's not like the Civil Rights Movement was not a religious movement. It very much was, at least in part, motivated by religious morals about the equal treatment of people.
But it turned to be fake, though. Only Dr. King was a real Christian. The rest of those so-called civil rights leaders was children of the lie, meaning that they were children of the devil.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Children of the devil?
Yeah.
Satan is their daddy, not God.
Oh, well, I don't believe
all
in Satan.
In the name of Jesus.
Okay.
Did you write a book on free speech?
Yeah, so this is giving the devil his due is my defense of free speech, free thought, heterodox thinking out of the box. We have to listen to what other people say, because much of the time, we're wrong about a lot of the things we believe, and the only way to correct the course that you might be going down the wrong course is to listen to other people. And we've gone the opposite way. Now, here's something that's been bothering me is that defense of free speech used to be a liberal cause. people on the left champion free speech and free thought, going back into the 1960s and the free speech movement on college campuses like UC Berkeley and so on. Now liberals are trying to censor people, particularly in college campuses, and it's conservatives that are defending free speach. And I'm like, what the heck happened here?
What? So you are an atheist. What does it mean to be an atheist?
I don't believe in God. That's it. I don't know there's no God, but I don't believe that in God.
Oh, so you believe there might be one, but you just don't believe in it.
Yep, there might be.
Yeah. Were you raised a Christian?
No, I wasn't raised anything. I became a born-again Christian in 1971 when I was in high school. And I went to Crescenta Valley High in La Crescenta, and I was matriculated at Pepperdine University in Malibu, which is a Church of Christ school. I went there. Then I went off to graduate school. So I was born again for about 7 years. All right,
so I got to ask you this. Since you don't believe in God, where do you get your morals from?
Same place you do, from our internal nature, that we have we're born with a sense of right and wrong. And we understand that there is good and evil. This research by people like Paul Bloom at Yale University with little children, they have a sense of right and wrong. Clever experiments on this. So we're born with this sense, and then our culture tweaks it one way or the other. So, we're born into, say, late 20th century, the second half of the 20th century, we've inculcated certain values. Now, a couple examples. For example, before 1967, interracial marriage was illegal. As you know, the Loving Supreme Court case overturned that. Before that, most Americans were against interracial marriage. Polls show consistently all the way up until the mid-1960s that more than 50% of Americans thought it was immoral and should be illegal for blacks and whites to marry. Nobody thinks that now.
They think it, they're just not saying it.
Well, hopefully they don't.
There are black people, there are most black people and most white people think it. Whites are afraid to say it for fear of being called racist.
Well, what do you think?
And blacks are saying they can get away with it.
But most polls show, even anonymous polls, where no one's going to know what your answer is.
Most with white people, though.
Most polls show, no, black African Americans too support. Not that they support. They don't even think it's an issue anymore. Of course, it's okay for blacks and whites to more. Same thing with gay marriage. I mean, look how quickly that changed.
Is gay marriage a normal thing to you? Is that normal for 2 men or 2 women to so-called get married? That's normal.
Okay, I don't know what you mean by normal.
Is it
everyone
normal?
has the
Do you
same
know the
right.
difference between abnormal and normal?
Okay, so the vast majority of people are heterosexual. There's a small percentage, maybe 3, 5, 7%, the numbers vary, are born gay. That's just the way they are by their nature. They never chose to become gay. They always felt that way. All the research supports that. Now let me back up 1 second. You're not against interracial marriage, or are you?
I'm neither against it or for it. I understand why people do it. And so I'm not against it or for it.
Well, they fall in love. That's a good thing.
Well, no, they don't fall in love.
Because you're a big proponent of marriage and family. So if a black and white fall in love and have a family, what's wrong with that?
Well, I'm neither for, as I said, I'm neither for it or against it. And because of time, I can't get into the whole thing about why, because I have so much to ask you.
Okay, all
and
right.
I love that you're asking me that. So that's why I'm telling you, I'm not for it or against it. Okay. I know why things happen. And people tend to do abnormal things when they're in a fallen state. If white people and black people were not in a fallen state, they would never get married. They wouldn't hate each other. They wouldn't discriminate like that. But they would not get married. They're only doing it because they're in a fallen state. And they're trying to get away from the person that traumatized them.
Where is it in the Bible that says blacks and whites or races should not mix?
Well, I don't know if it's in the Bible or not. I'm just telling you why they do it, and I'm not either against it or for it.
But you just said you don't know what's in the heart of other people you don't even know. You don't want to judge them. But you're right now judging say a couple that fall in love, that there's something wrong with that, or that two gay people want to fall in love and want to be married. I mean, here you are, a big pro-marriage guy, and a couple comes to you and says, "Hey, we got married. Aren't you going to go? Good, marriage is good."
Yeah, I would say congratulations, because as I said, I'm neither for it or against it.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
that's a start.
So I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
In this talk I saw last night on your video, speaking at some university, and you were talking about the difference between religion and government.
Yeah.
And you said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that government set up rules to control you, and likewise, religion set up as rules to control you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very interesting concept. I had never heard anyone say that before. Why do you say? I know that governments create laws in the attempt to control you, but why do you say religion create laws to control you?
Yeah, that particular lecture comes from one of my earlier books, in which I say that around the time that human groups started to coalesce into larger and larger city states and then nation states and so on, once you get populations above several hundred, you need a set of rules for people to get along with one another. The reason for that is because we have a dual nature. We have inner demons and we have better angels. So we need rules and norms and customs and guidelines and ultimately laws that are enforced either by government. The state hands everybody a copy, or you're in a city with 1,000 people and everybody gets a copy of the rules, and so on. In a democracy, we vote on those rules or whatever. But what religion does that even more, in the sense that God is sort of the eye in the sky. So even if you think you got away with it because no one saw you or there were no surveillance cameras or whatever, there is an eye in the sky. God knows, and you will ultimately be judged in the end. I'm arguing that these were both invented ideas to get people to be more cooperative, more pro-social, follow the rules, quit being a free rider, a cheater, a bully, a criminal, whatever. We have to have some kind of justice system and a set of rules, or else, there's chaos. And so it was religion and government that arose around the same time.
But you said within us there's evil and good angels or something. You just said?
Yeah, better angels and inner demons. Yeah.
And so
I mean this metaphorically. I know you might take it literally. I mean metaphorically, that
I know what you mean.
Yeah, we have a dark side. I mean, we have a sense of selfishness, and I want what's best for me and my family, but I know that you want what's best for you and your family, so I need to honor you and respect you and give you the freedom to pursue your self-interest if I want you to give me the freedom to pursue my self-interest, as long as we don't harm each other. And that's the basis of a civil society.
Would those better angels be considered as good?
As good as what?
You said there are demons in us and they're better angels, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty close, right? So the whole point of
are those better angels good?
Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
And does that mean that they are of God?
No, I claim we're born with them.
We're born with better angels?
Yeah, we're born with them. Yeah, we're born with a sense of right and wrong, and sometimes we, as you would say in your language, we sin. That is, we fall away from the ideal standards of what's the right thing to do. Most of us know what the right thing to do is. Most of the time, most people are good. But the amount of crime or harm that happens and so on is high enough that we need some kind of justice system to encourage people to do the right thing and discourage them from doing the wrong thing. Now, you would say this is as a result of our fallen nature, but I don't see it as a bug in the system. You fell, that it's a feature. We're just born with this tendency to, let's say, cultivate a reputation for being tough, and if you take advantage of me, you bully me, I'm going to fight back. Okay,
but I gotta ask you this,
much of violence is moralistic in nature. When you look at police blotters for why people kill each other, for example, homicides, about 90% of homicides are moralistic in nature. The guy did it because, you slept with my girlfriend, you insulted me at the bar, you stole my parking spot. This is the kinds of reasons people give for why they commit violence. It's moralistic in nature, not instrumental. In other words, I knock off the liquor store to get cash, or I knock off the jewelry store to get some free Rolexes. As a criminal, that's actually much rarer than the other examples I just gave.
But who created you in a sense that you have two identities inside? You have the good angels, as you said, and the evil. Who did that?
Well, nature.
What do you mean, nature?
I mean, our evolutionary nature is such that we have these competing motives, this competition between what's best for me and what's best for my group. And so
That's
when
amazing.
yeah, oh, it is amazing. No, and I wrote a whole book about this
Would
called The
you
Science.
consider yourself an intellectual?
Here's my book on that, The Science of Good and Evil.
Oh, okay. Would you consider
Well,
yourself
intellectual.
to be an
I'm a
intellectual?
professor, so I guess so. Yes, and I write books and so on. Yeah, I
But
guess so. But I
isn't
mean,
that a problem?
these are just ideas. It doesn't matter if you're intellectual or not. Anyone can
But if you
understand these
notice,
ideas.
intellectual people tend not to have wisdom. They don't have that love. They
What?
don't see where they don't see who created the
You have
intellect.
to be non-intellectual to understand love and these kinds of things. Come on.
Oh, don't ask me. I want you to respond to that in a minute, but I gotta go back to something you said.
Okay.
Is so-called same-sex marriage, is
Yeah.
that normal or abnormal?
I see. This is a black and white thing. Think of it as a spectrum, a continuum, right? So when it's neither good nor bad any more than
I didn't ask about good or
heterosexual
bad.
couples.
I asked if it's normal or abnormal.
If you mean statistically, it's abnormal. If you're just talking
But
statistically,
what do you personally believe?
But you're asking me to make a moral judgment or a
No,
statistical
I'm asking you,
assessment?
what do you personally believe that so-called same-sex marriage is normal or abnormal?
Neither one. It's just the way people are born.
Do you believe there
and
is a norm and an abnorm?
Again, statistic. You're asking me ethically, right?
No, I'm
Not-
just asking you your personal belief.
Yeah.
Do you believe personally, within your own heart,
Yeah.
do you believe same-sex marriage is normal or abnormal?
I would say neither. I would say if
There has to
two
be
people-
one.
No, it doesn't. Because you're asking me normal or abnormal, not in a statistical sense, because in a statistical sense, I would say it's abnormal, of course, because it's a smaller number.
Is
Let's
there
say
a
it's-
norm or is there a norm and an abnorm?
No, I would not. Ethically, I would not say so.
Is there a right and a wrong?
Okay, here, I'll answer your question. Here's what I think about same-sex marriage. All people should be granted the same rights under our Constitution,
But that's not what I asked.
regardless of your skin color, who you like to sleep with, which bits you have. It doesn't matter. You're a citizen of the United States. You're protected by the U.S. Constitution. Period. You don't get to have.
I didn't ask that though.
extra-
That's a
Yeah.
standard answer.
Well,
I'm
I know,
asking you,
but ethically,
as
here's
a
what I think.
doctor.
In my heart, okay. You asked me what's in my heart.
No, I'm
in my
asking
heart,
you: is same-sex marriage personally to you? If same-sex marriage is a norm or an abnorm?
it's normal.
It's normal. And what makes it normal?
Because if two people are in love with each other and they're not hurting anybody, then why not? And same thing with heterosexual
And what
marriages.
is love?
If two people that are in love but they fall out of love and they get divorced, they're straight, say straight couple, or the guy is abusive and he commits violence against his spouse, that's wrong. I would say that's abnormal.
But and so,
In other words, straight couples could be just as abnormal.
are you saying that
in your sense.
you're saying that so-called gay couples have the same love, the same kind of love
Of course,
that
absolutely.
straight couples have?
Absolutely.
So what is love?
Okay, love is a deep sense of commitment and binding to another person, as for life or for your life, for your and the willingness to sacrifice yourself for that person. It's very much a subjective feeling, but and as far as I know and can tell, because I don't know what's in other people's hearts, and as you said, you don't want to judge people you never met, but every gay couple I know that's together and in love, they're married or not, whatever, they look to be the same as me. And I don't presume to judge them, and I don't think my marriage to a woman is any different than I know several gay couples. Their marriage seems just as good as mine. They seem just as much in love. They're just as good and normal.
When you see two men or two women together call themselves married, you think it's the same as you and your wife being married?
Absolutely, 100%.
Amazing.
Totally. Yeah. How could you say amazing? How
That
do you
is
know?
amazing.
But how do you know what's in their heart? You said you don't want to judge other people you
I
don't
didn't
know.
judge
So
them.
when you see
I'm
a
not
straight
judging
couple,
them at all. I just think that's amazing that you would make that statement.
Why-
I gotta
why?
ask
What-
you this.
but why? Why is that amazing?
I don't know. It's just amazing.
I'll
Let me
give you two
ask.
examples. So my wife is from Germany. She's a ballet dancer, and she has a couple that is her dance partner for dancing is a gay guy, and he's married. And we know the two of them for years. They're just as deeply in love as my wife and I are, and they're good people. And they own a home together. They love each other. They travel. Just like any couple. Why would I want to judge them or even in any way think that's not normal? I mean, that's just so crazy.
That's
Just
amazing.
that's so unchristian like. What would Jesus do? Jesus would accept these people. And by the way, I should point out too,
Amazing.
Since you're Republican, I should point out,
Why do you
Jesus,
believe that Jesus would accept these people as they are when you don't believe
because
there is?
that's
when you
part
don't
of his
believe in
philosophy.
Jesus.
The pioneering. I can't believe I'm defending Jesus on a radio show as an atheist.